folks, welcome to the show. Get ready to meet your host for the night, Arizona's very own hip historian himself, Marshall Shore.
There we go. So just to give you a little hint, so if you take a look at my green screen back there, why indeed, that is a woolly mammoth. And that name may come up more than once through the course of this evening, but we'll get into that as we go along. So I want to welcome you all and thank you so much for joining us here on the Happy Hour. Now, I do want to say thank you to all of you for being here. And this is only made possible through folks like you being oh so generous. If you feel so inclined and you're able to, I mean, there is my Venmo at the very top if you'd like to send a little something my way. I would also like to thank AARP for being a sponsor. And they say the coronavirus continues to affect us all. We may be apart, but we are not alone. AARP is here in Arizona providing information that can help you and your family. If you'd like more information on their services and some of the other virtual programs they have on, you can reach out to them at aarp.org/AZ. They're doing all kinds of fun things. I know they have a drum circle going on, so you can join that and use anything you have in your house. So you may not have a drum, you might have a skillet. Whatever it takes. Because, you know, right now it's all about how do we keep ourselves sane in all that's happening and that's going on. I would ask you, if you're watching on Facebook, if you can click on the share button so that you can share some of that Arizona history love with your other friends and they can see how much fun we're going to have tonight, because it's going to be a whiz bang, a heck of a show tonight. So if through the course of the evening you want to reach out to me, there is always the chat section, as well as you can reach out to me on Facebook, Instagram, email. So I would love to hear from you. So I know we've got a couple folks out there that have already kind of signed up for future programs. They said, hey, I want to be a part of that. And so they are going to be. So through the course of the evening tonight, we'll be talking about Little Arizona, a small little town that is connected to this guy right here. We'll also be talking about some music history right here in Arizona, as well as kind of a show and tell, something from my collection, as well as trivia. And in a little bit, we have an oh so special guest, but we'll get into that later. So my name is Marshall Shore. I am your host this evening. And I have been for the last 14 episodes. So this makes it number 15 on this almost the end of July. Isn't that shocking? July 30th. Who would have thought? All right. So, you know, how does one get a name like the Hip Historian? Well, you know, about 20 years ago, it was really cold. There was lots of snow back in Brooklyn. And I decided it was time for a change. So we loaded up everything into a big orange cube, a U-Haul. And, you know, they have their real headquarters right here in the Valley of the Sun. And so we promptly moved into a 1956 ranch. Actually, let's make that a little bit bigger so you can see it, because my house is I love my house. So it's a little 1956 ranch, and pretty much it is a time capsule. Looks almost like it did the day it was built. All the cabinets, all the doors, right down to the doorknobs are the same ones that were here when it was built in 1956. Now, as soon as I got here from New York, all I kept hearing about how there was no history here. But I knew that wasn't true, because every time I went somewhere, I came face to face with so many amazing stories about people, places, buildings, that it actually prompted me to basically walk away from libraries and do things just like this. And then there's that post-war boom that I think in a lot of ways made the Arizona that we all know and love today. All those GIs that either were stationed here, trained here, or passed through on their way to some other adventure. And after the war, they were moving here in huge numbers, and in many cases looking for a house just like mine. And then we have this man, Dr. Carrier. Now, he created a little odd-looking machine. You might think, why, that's an adding machine. Nope, it's not an adding machine. It's even better. It's something that probably almost all of us have, an air conditioner. Because without him, we would not be smiling through these summer days of high heat advisory warnings and things like that. Now, you know, we might not look like this, which is a great ad for making people wanting to buy air conditioners, but I doubt if any of us are walking around wearing knit caps trimmed in fur, because that's not very Arizona. Now, I would also like to say thank you to the Phoenix New Times. They have named me Best Historian several years in a row, as well as Phoenix Magazine named me the Best Bespectacled Phoenix Celebrity, because I do have a penchant for eyewear. Now, as usual, what is Marshall wearing? So, you know, if you've seen this before, you know kind of what I'm wearing, but, you know, I could be wearing this, a jacket dripping in trolls. But I decided all that fake fur would be just a little too warm to be wearing today. So indeed, I am wearing a jacket that comes to us from Valentine's Day of 2012. Well, really Statehood Day, which just happens to be February 14th as well. And, you know, back in 2012, we had 100 years of statehood celebrations going across the state. And someone gave me 15 minutes on the main stage in front of the state capitol to do anything I wanted to do. And I chose to talk about an event that was originally started by Charlotte Hall back in 1926. Now, if you're ever up in Prescott, you can go visit her house, which is a museum. It was also home to territorial governors before her as well. So that's always a fun little adventure. It was called the Mask of the Yellow Moon. It was based on a legend about how the god of sun would give his rays to make the earth golden and warm and make things grow. So it was always a springtime event. And it was first held at the Elzebue Shriners Temple, which is just down the street from the Capitol. And it then became the Mining and Mineral Museum. But they got booted out for something that never materialized. But, you know, they do have designs on moving right back into this building. It's going to take them a few years to get it back up to code, but they'll be opening up what I think is probably one of the quirkiest museums, I would say, in probably all of Arizona. So I really look forward to be able to go and tour that building again. Now, then it got too big and moved to Montgomery Stadium, which was the first stadium here in Arizona and was home to all kinds of things, including the Salad Bowl, which was our very first bowl game. Now, I sure wish somebody would bring that back. And, you know, that game, pack them in. And what would you expect from the Salad Bowl? Why, no other than a queen of the Salad Bowl riding in on her float that looks like a salad bowl. And if you look really close, you will notice a spoon and fork that she could serve from. That would take a heck of a lot of oil and vinegar. My gosh. Now, the Mask of the Yellow Moon ran from 1926. It ended in 1955. At its height, it had about 5,000 high school and college students performing. It was woven through the curriculum, so everybody got involved. You had different clubs, like here's the debate club doing skits. You had multiple marching bands because pretty much every high school was involved. And then there was dance. All those young ladies in high school got a chance to go down onto the field and be a part of something big. So many of them considered it a rite of passage, getting the opportunity to be something that was so much larger than just themselves and really feel a part of a community. Now, the event, Mask of the Yellow Moon, was actually touted right up there with Mardi Gras as something that everyone in the country should go and see. In fact, they would hold tickets for folks across the state in case people from small towns who couldn't buy in advance wanted to see it. There were always tickets available. And I was lucky enough to find a few dresses in a box. And this, when I opened that box and saw this Aztec-inspired costume from the late 30s, my jaw dropped because it was so beautiful. And I was able to talk 3 friends into donning those dresses. And so, you know, you might have guessed I'm not a very good wallflower. So I needed something that would stand up to those amazing dresses. And so I had my friend Glenn, who is now in his early 90s. When he rolled in town in the early 50s, he was already working on signs across the valley. And here he is last year accepting an award for the Hall of Fame for the Arizona Sign Association. One of the signs that you might be familiar with that he did was the My Florist sign over on 7th Avenue in McDowell. Although now they painted it, it's a little bit different color. And so this is the jacket that he painted. It was an homage to the Arizona state flag. And so with that, it inspired me in oh so many ways, including I've got a puppet of myself. And of course, the puppet is wearing a matching jacket, kind of like a little mini me, and with great glasses as well. Now, the reason why I always start with this story is because you never know where the next bit of a story is coming from. And so I did a program for an organization called Arizona's First Families. And when I was done talking, this woman, Norma, came up to me and tapped me on the shoulder and said, you know, I've got something to show you. We went out to her car, and this is what she pulled out. This was her mother's dress that she wore in the Mask of the Yellow Moon, but she also had programs with her. So we know it was either 28 or 29. Now, at that point, the librarian in me kicked in, and I wasn't about to touch those frail pieces of paper and get my greasy mitts on them. So I look forward to taking another look at those and figuring out exactly what number as well as what year this dress was worn in. Now, what I love is, I mean, even though it's late 20s, this dress is in immaculate condition. And the vibrancy of those butterflies, of the flowers covering the dress, are still spectacular. And if you'd like to learn more about the First Families of Arizona, you can reach out to them on Facebook or also on the interwebs. You know, it's funny. A few weeks ago, I had a friend on, Mike, and he didn't realize that he was eligible to be a member of the First Families. So happy to, if anyone else falls into that category of being able to show their lineage of family to pre-statehood, it's really an amazing group to hang out with. They have so many stories. Oh my gosh. And because it is an Arizona History Happy Hour, of course, it wouldn't be a happy hour without some sort of a cocktail, which we indeed do have. And so today it is the Arizona Corpse Reviver, which is a little twist on a corpse reviver so that we can truly make it. And actually, I now have a cocktail advisor. And so he was the one that said, well, you know, what about this cocktail, since we're tying it to archaeology? So I thought it was kind of a nice little twist, as well as the fact that whiskey is really an abbreviation for Celtic water of life. So just layer upon layer. So I look forward to more Arizona history coming through in just, I wouldn't say a simple cocktail, but something that you can imbibe. All right, so let's see. Oh, and I just realized my bar kicked off. So, all righty. So I am gonna make the Arizona Corpse Reviver. So we've got, and actually, since we're doing it this way, let's do this. So we have this amazing Del Bach whiskey, and it is clear. So I'm so excited. It's like, you know, I had this sitting on my shelf, and so I'm really excited to get a chance to try this. And so with this, we need a 1. All right. So we've got some of that. And then same thing. We've got our Lillet Blanc right here. And then a little bit of Cointreau as well. So the nice thing is it's all pretty much equal. Put a little bit of ice in there. And my lemon juice. And I even, oh, you can't, can you see it's a skull? So it's a skull and a bone for a cocktail stirrer. So yeah, that's the Virgo in me. It's like, how much can I make everything kind of go together or not? Oh, darn, that's quite tasty. Well, that'll be quite lovely as we keep moving along. All right, and so now we have view from the Hist-O-Cam, basically kind of like an adult show and tell. And so what I will do is oh, actually I went the wrong way with the size of that. Let's do this. And so, oops. And indeed, so here is a glass from the Petrified Forest, which is hopefully a lot of you have been there. I mean, it's along Route 40 or old Route 66 and has been pretty much a tourist destination since, I mean, has been an important spot to the land for quite some time, long before any of us ever even got here. So it's been an important spot as well as really heavily important for tourism. First, you had buses going through along Route 66 and then people going through. I mean, you can kind of get an idea of just the number of postcards. And, you know, why wouldn't you want to go and see it? Because look at that amazing color, those amazing vistas. I mean, and then right down the street, you've got the Painted Desert, but we'll save that for another time because that's in another amazing park as well. So again, I want to thank you all for being here. And through the miracle of modern technology, I want to bring on Emily Early. She's a curator of anthropology at the Arizona Museum of Natural History in Mesa, Arizona. She oversees the anthropology collections, exhibit design, and cultural resource management activities. She has a BA in anthropology and history from Barrett's Honors College right here at ASU, as well as an MA and a PhD in anthropology from Yale University. Hello, Emily.
Hi.
Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for inviting me. Thanks everyone for coming.
Yeah, so tell us a little bit about the museum.
Well, I don't want to give too much away.
Exactly. I was going to say,
the trivia questions.
Don't give away all the trivia.
And clearly you can tell from my background that my location this week is not nearly as interesting as last week's guest, who seemed to be in a camper, which was awesome when Joseph was in that.
Oh, I know. I adore Joseph.
As you guys heard, I'm curator of anthropology at the museum. We are local. I don't want to give away exactly where we are. We have a pretty big following, but sometimes people are very confused about where we are located. So hopefully we'll generate some more awareness about that. We care for collections in anthropology, paleontology, geology, education collections, and we even have some live animals. We partner with and support science groups, arts, humanities groups throughout the state, and do a lot of outreach and support for the community in all of those areas.
Great. All right. So those of you that have been with us before, we always do a trivia quiz. And so with that trivia, what we do is it's multiple choice. So even if you don't know the answer, just take a stab at it, a poke at it, and you've got a chance of getting it right. So that's always the fun. And we also will go through the questions, and then after we go through the questions, we will go through the answers and explain why those are the answers. So it's not like a lot of trivia games where it's all about what do you know or what you don't know. It really is more. I'm laughing because Nikki's saying it looks like I'm sitting right between the horns. And I was like, even when I was setting it up, I was like, okay, probably not the best photo to have, but it was the best photo I could find of a woolly mammoth. But so, yeah, I mean, I think this is going to be a lot of fun, and we're going to just.
And our paleontology department would like me to point out that woolly mammoths would not have been native to Arizona. It would have been the Columbian mammoth that was known as woolly.
I didn't know there was Columbian mammoths. Oh, look at that. I'd only heard of woolly mammoths, so I didn't know there were Columbian ones.
Absolutely. And that would have depended on temperature, environment, as to how much hair you do or do not have.
Right, because in the middle of Arizona in the desert, you probably didn't want to be a woolly mammoth.
Even though it would have been cooler here then than it is now, including in archaeological times, absolutely, still hotter than other places.
All right, so let's get started with some trivia. All right, and we've got 10 questions. So our first question is, where is the Arizona Museum of Natural History located, and how long has it been there?
And this is why it was okay.
And how many names has it had? So this is kind of a multi-pronged question. Kind of reminds me, you know, in college, some of those professors would give you like trick questions that you had to, it's like, wait a minute, they're all kind of right. All right, so where is the museum? Is it A, downtown Phoenix? Has it been there for 17 years and with 2 name changes? Has it been in downtown Mesa for 33 years with only 1 name change? Or is it C, downtown Mesa for 43 years with 2 name changes? Or D, downtown Phoenix for 7 years without a name change? So you can.
Full disclosure, I have taught at university. That's why this is reminding you of. Sorry.
So no, I always hated those questions because it was kind of like, you had to really know your stuff to get it right because they're all so close.
Yeah.
That even if you knew part of it, you couldn't figure out, you couldn't eliminate one. So feel free to either write your answer in the chat session, in the chat, or keep track of it on a scratch piece of paper nearby. All right. Where do museums get their objects they display? That's a really good question. All right. Is it A, excavation? B, donations? C, do they purchase them? Or D, all of the above? How do museums get those objects they have on display? All right. And how are most of the Natural History Museum, how are their exhibits built? A, do they purchase traveling exhibits? B, in-house by a small team of staff and a large number of volunteers? C, in-house by a team of staff? Or D, completely by volunteers?
And Marshall, thanks for pointing out that's specific to our museum, because every museum designs and builds their exhibits differently.
Right. I mean, and that's some of the fun of just the involvement of people and staff. All right. The dinosaur you see busting out of the side of the building is, and Emily, I'm going to ask for some help here. I'm going to call a lifeline in.
Acrocanthosaurus.
Oh, Acrocanthosaurus. All right. And when was it installed? So was it installed in A, 2019, B, 2016, C, 2017, or D, 2018? When was what she said? When was that dinosaur installed? All right. We're at the halfway mark. So the Mesa Grand Cultural Park is a part of the Arizona Natural History Museum. Ancestral Sonoran desert dwellers built this temple mound from 1100 to 1450 BCE. What other name were these ancient peoples known as? I have a feeling this will be a really good discussion on this. So A, formerly referred to as Hist-O-Cam, B, formerly referred to as Pima, or C, Mogollon, or D, Puebloan. All right, so who built that temple mound out in Mesa? And also, how many of you actually have been there? I mean, it's kind of amazing where it is. It's oh so close to everything.
Yes, it is.
All right, question 6. What artifacts, objects made or modified by humans, are the Hist-O-Cam material culture most famous for? So name something that the Hist-O-Cam created, modified, that they're very known for. Right here, is it A, ceramics, B, canals, C, ball courts, or D, cliff dwellings? Well, I'm happy to see there's a bunch of folks that said, yes, they've been there. So, all right. So what were the Hist-O-Cam famous for building? All right. Moving on to question 7. All right. The Native American Graves Protection and Reparation Act was enacted in 1990. What does it do? A, stop construction on potential archaeological sites. B, stop construction on native land. C, ensure museums and other agencies return previously excavated native remains and grave goods to their descendant groups. Or D, ensure museums and other agencies return past, present, and future native remains and grave goods to their descendant groups. What does that Native American Grave Protection Act do? All right. Number 8. Fossils found in the Western Salt River Valley are from the Pleistocene epoch, which lasted from about 2.6 million to about 10,000 years ago. How do you imagine most Pleistocene fossils are discovered in a growing metropolitan area? A, the general public finds them in their yard. B, general public finds them on hikes. C, found during construction. D, found by archaeologists on hikes. How do you think those fossils are being located? All right, moving on to question 9. And I'm not even going to, this reminds me of going to IKEA.
Fair enough.
So I will let you handle this one.
Susquetyranus hazeli was an early species of tyrannosaur from about 92 million years ago. When was it published and how is it connected to AZMNH? A, 2019 by former teen volunteer Dr. Nesbitt and in collaboration with Southwest Paleontological Society and paleontologist Doug Wolf. B, 2019 by former teen volunteer Dr. Nesbitt and paleontology curator Dr. Robert McCord. C, 1998 by then volunteer Sterling Nesbitt and in collaboration with Southwest Paleontological Society and paleontologist Doug Wolf. Or D, 1998 by then volunteer Sterling Nesbitt and paleontology curator Dr. Robert McCord.
All right. So which one of
Remember,
those?
it's when it was published.
Except two of them have the same year. See, there you are trying to be tricky. All right. And our last and final question. The AZM&H has a large young family audience and a number of events that appeal to that demographic. But they do have a signature event that is an adult-only evening event. What is it? And what do they feature? A, Wino Dino, featuring state wineries. B, Dinner and Dinos, featuring downtown restaurants. C, Beer and Bones, featuring local breweries. And D, Meet the Scientist, featuring local researchers. Which one of those do you think is that signature event for the museum? All right. Well, while you're all doing that, as you're kind of finishing up, trying to put your thoughts together on this, we're going to do a little bit of Arizona music history. Now, you know, in this time of COVID, there's a lot that's closed down. Music venues are shut. There's no live music going on. But I want to give a shout out to Trunk Space, which has been around since 2004 and has really been kind of the epicenter of doing a lot of indie bands, whether national acts or local, and really kind of nurturing those musicians and providing a stage for them to play on and really building a music community. And one of the members of their community is Dinosaur Love, which is Peter Kowalski. And he is a one-man band called Dinosaur Love. Now, when he does perform, he does wear that head as well. Now, his music is really a blend of, it's really kind of almost, has a very Violent Femmes feel to it, very 80s era, but with almost like a garage 60s feel, blending acoustic guitar and an organ. He's really a one-man band because on his cut, on all of his songs, he's the only musician that appears on them. He's playing every instrument. And he has fallen in love with dinosaurs. And so you can only guess with a band name like Dinosaur Love, a lot of his music has to do with dinosaurs. I mean, it's very folk punk. And you can hear such songs as Tyrannosaurus Sex, You Make Me Feel Like a Pterodactyl. And he said, you know, dragon and mythology is alive in almost every culture. So dinosaurs all live inside of our minds. And thanks to Peter, they can live inside of our ears as well. And look forward to an opportunity where we can go and hear some live music. If you would actually like to hear some of Dinosaur Love's music, you can track him down on Bandcamp at ilovedinosaurs.bandcamp.com. And so he has multiple albums, extended play versions of some of his songs. And even on YouTube, he's got some great videos up there as well. Some of them from across the valley. So always fun to check out. All right. So who's ready for some answers? All right. So question 1, where is the Museum of Natural History at?
Yeah, so prior to opening, the Mesa Historical and Archaeological Society, which was founded in 1953, was the driving force behind the museum. Then in 1967, Betty Ford opened the historic schoolhouse on the site of where the present museum is in Mesa, just to be clear, and that strengthened community support. We opened in 1977 as the Mesa Museum of Archaeology and History, so first name, with a name change to Mesa Southwest Museum in 1985. So that's the first change. And then a name and mission change to Arizona Museum of Natural History in 2007. So that was the second change.
And there you go. So now you know you've got to go to downtown Mesa if you want to go visit the museum when they're open. All right. And how do museums get the objects they display? I'm sure you're all shocked. It's all of the above. It's a little bit of everything.
And all of it involves careful documentation, different legal issues with it, permitting for different parts. But by and large, that's how we get all of them in a natural history museum.
All right. And how are most of the exhibits for the museum, how are they built? Oh my gosh, who would have guessed? It's a mix of staff and volunteers. The answer is B.
For us, our exhibits team currently has 3 in-house full-time positions, 1 full-time temp. As of March, prior to COVID and shutdowns, we had 22 exhibits volunteers. We're trying to get currently 2 exhibits built with just our current staff, no volunteers allowed in the building at the moment. So that means some of us from other departments get to pitch in too. So I get to do cement work next week.
Fun.
I'm excited.
Yeah. All right. And then you can see that amazing dinosaur bursting out from the side of the building. And that was installed not that long ago.
No, and it's very quickly become a popular selfie spot in downtown. We had a combination of art and science behind the sculpture. It was a big group effort from our former volunteer, Ed Mack, exhibits preparator, Mike Keller, Dimensional Innovations and Stab Studios, and our paleontology department with Bob McCord and Gavin McCullough. So it was a huge labor of love that turned out to be very successful.
Actually, I love that fact there's a collaboration of Mac and so many other people getting involved to create this one visual.
Yeah, and it's really a very popular spot for photography.
You can see why.
Yeah.
All right, question 4. The Mesa Grande Cultural Park was built by a group, and the answer is A, formerly referred to as the Hist-O-Cam.
So if you grew up in Arizona and took social studies here, I'm sure you've heard the term Hist-O-Cam, probably even if you moved here within the last 10 years or so. That term came from early Caucasian explorers and earlier archaeologists who recorded the name Hist-O-Cam instead of Huhugam. Huhugam is an Otham word for their ancestors that include the people who created what we now refer to as the Hist-O-Cam material culture. So in collaboration with the descendant tribes, we're moving towards referring to the ancient peoples as ancestral Sonoran desert dwellers, but they're artifacts as part of the Hist-O-Cam material culture. And that way we acknowledge the continuation and the heritage of the people, because it can be difficult, as I'm sure you've seen, Marshall, for a lot of people to distinguish between what is a political group and organization and structure that collapses and the actual peoples who continue on after that.
Wow. Because I know it's like out in Maricopa, they have the Hist-O-Cam Cultural Center.
Yeah. Are you talking about the Hist-O-Cam Key Museum?
Yes.
At SRP? Yes. That's amazing. Everyone should visit there. A lot of our local tribes have amazing websites, have their own museums. Check some of those out.
So very good. Well, thank you for clearing that up, because I never knew which term or so it's kind of like also like the term Katsina, which is you hear at various places and not others. And so.
Absolutely. Yeah.
All right. What artifacts are made by the Hist-O-Cam material culture, and what are they most famous for? And is B, those canals, which is why we're all here.
Absolutely. So Marshall, you had some of those pictures, from that were historic pictures and showing woolly hats, etc. We can see even within the last few decades a change in the climate here with all of the canal systems that they would have had up for farming. And it was a lot. They were the only culture in North America to rely on the canals to supply water to crops. And they irrigated up to 110,000 acres in this area. And that would have provided much different moisture patterns and temperature patterns as well with all of that water.
Well, as well as then even just our own footprint on how that's changing the environment and the fact that we are here because of those canals.
Absolutely.
So, all right. So the Native American Graves Protection Act and Reparation Act was enacted in 1990. And what is it? Why it ensures that other agencies return past, present, and future Native remains and grave goods to the descendant groups.
So just to be clear, I threw in the stop construction stuff because that's often what people think, particularly if you're in a job in construction or engineering. It's just a full process that should be followed. And if you're going through all of it, as normal, then that consultation occurs early on, and it really doesn't stop anything.
Well, and
We're
I
just
like
being good neighbors.
Well, and like when they were building the Fry's grocery store in downtown Phoenix, it was like they found lots of things. And what I loved was the fact that for a short period of time, Area 23 was on like the tip of everyone's tongue. People were talking about it as it was originally referred to. And then like you've got the Pioneer Cemetery, which is built upon La Villa, which is indigenous peoples were living there long before we ever got here. And we're just layers upon layers of history. And as they walk around the cemetery, you'll find little pottery shards and things like that. And so we always tell people, just leave it where it is because you don't need that bad mojo in your life. Don't touch it. Just leave it right where it is.
And I think a lot of people, think that Arizona doesn't have as much history as it does because they're thinking of things like the East Coast or Europe. Well, we have pueblos, pit houses, mounds. That's all historic architecture, and it's amazing. We have a long history in the valley.
Right. All right. And fossils found in the Western Salt River Valley from the Pleistocene epoch, which lasted, how do you imagine most of those fossils are discovered in a growing metropolitan area? Found during construction.
When you think about it, if you dig down, you have newer stuff on top, older stuff underneath, still older as you go down, like your laundry basket, right? So stuff you had wore yesterday, stuff from the day before that, the day before that. So you dig down further and you're more likely to find something from an older period. So that's why it's found in construction. And if anyone is really interested in learning more about that, I think you should check out our Facebook page at AZMNH. And under our videos section, we have a really great post about this on May 6th from our paleontology collections manager, Gavin McCullough. And he explains a lot more about the Pleistocene epoch and the fossils you find.
Very cool. All right. So when was the document published? 2019.
And that was tricky because the second specimen was discovered in 1999 by Sterling with Southwest Paleontology Society, but it wasn't published until 2019. It came out in the journal Nature. It's titled A Mid-Cretaceous Tyrannosaurid and the Origin of North American and Cretaceous Dinosaur Assemblages. Dr. Nesbitt is first author, if you ever want to check that out.
Now, does museum have a library, I'm assuming?
We do have a library. The Nature article could be found online as well.
Okay. Very good. All right. And then our last question. What is the signature adult event for the museum? It's Beer and Bones.
So this has been our signature event for several years. We are looking for ways to bring this to people virtually now. So please keep checking our social media pages to see what we come up with. A lot of the artwork that you have seen in the images were done by some of our own folks in-house. I've mentioned Gavin McCullough before. This sculpture is done by Benjamin Paisno and will be featured in some of our upcoming exhibits once we reopen again.
When I see we actually even have Gavin joining us this evening in the chat section, which is nice. So hello, Gavin. Good to see you again. It's been a while. All right, Emily. So can you talk a little about, so you mentioned there's the one program coming up virtually. What else is the museum doing? Because now we've probably started up some people that like, hey, I want to go. And so what can they do in this moment?
There are lots of opportunities for engagement. You know, we're always looking for volunteers. We can't really use anyone physically in the museum at the moment, but we do have some behind the scenes things. People can come to our social media pages. We are on Facebook, we're on Instagram. We have a Pinterest page. Facebook and Instagram are usually more active. We are starting up a natural history training session in the fall. It's for our volunteers, but the general public can also join into that. So look for that. It's upcoming. It's going to be an 8-week course. We are steadily, trying to build up exhibits behind the scenes. Some things we have that can be done a little bit virtually, but most of it is just trying to support us virtually online. If you're already a member, there are some other things to explore, and we'll reach out to you about that. And if you want to become a member, please do. We're always looking for ways to reach out to our members as well.
And I really like so many museums are doing just what you had said, of really kind of going more heavier on Facebook and more on Pinterest or Instagram. So that way it just keeps people aware of the collections and they can focus on one thing and kind of highlight a variety of things.
And we are part of the larger arts and culture department within downtown Mesa as well. And so that includes Mesa Arts Center, which also houses Mesa Contemporary Arts, as well as the Idea Museum, which is more focused on children and STEAM activities. So we all collaborate regularly as well.
Great. So yeah, I mean, be sure and check out the Facebook, Instagram, and website for more information on how you can either get more involved with the museum or just see more of what they have in collections. Oh, and actually, I will share. Let's see. And look at that.
Thanks, TJ.
Exactly. Thank you so much, TJ. So yeah, so there is their website. So you can go visit and find out some of the things they're doing online, maybe when I attend the training.
Absolutely. And Marshall, I'm so glad that you host these. Particularly now with COVID, I think there's a lot of uncertainty about changing and how we do that as humans. And looking back at history as well as archaeology clearly demonstrates that humans are very adaptable. We are good with change. We get through it and we do it well. So if there's anything you can learn from history, it's we need to learn how to change and pivot quickly. And we do. And I think that's a great message.
So, and plus, I mean, it's just so much fun because there are so many times where I go in not necessarily knowing much about a subject, but now it's like, oh, look, I now know a lot more than I did going into it. So that's part of the fun for me is the exploration. So, and like, well, now I know more than I did. And hopefully a lot more folks out there know about the museum and are looking forward to getting a chance to visit. And also, if you haven't been to those temple mounds, well worth a visit.
Yes, and Mesa Grande Cultural Park is the major crossroads are Brown and Country Club. It's just to the west of Country Club. So right smack in the middle of the city of Mesa. It's a little bit tucked in into a neighborhood.
I mean, and so glad that they're now preserved, because I mean, one of the things is, like, you get stories from people. It's like, I've had people tell me about, as they were kids, they would ride their bikes over those mounds because they were like,
Yes.
oh, look, it's a dirt hill in the middle of town. So of course we're going to ride on it.
Yep, I hear the same stories. Police officers who talk about how decades ago they would position their car up at the top because they didn't know what it was and it offered a good view of the city. And so now we've really been able to protect that area better and inform the public, which is great.
Exactly. Well, Emily, thank you so much for being on, and have a great rest of your evening, and look forward to a chance when we can all come and visit you at the museum. And
thank you so much.
Exhibits. And are you going to write your name in the concrete so that we'll know which piece you've done?
We'll see what exhibits will allow for that.
All right. Thank you. And Gavin, thank you so much for being on here again. Look forward to hang out again in front of the raw houses, in front of a little pit fire. So always fun. So thank you so much, and have a great rest of your night, Emily.
Thanks, you too.
All right. So I'm going to go ahead and take down that website. So as soon as I figure out how to. There we go. All right. So, that's always the fun of these. So again, I want to thank you all so much for being here. Now we're going to go on to Little Arizona. And because it was really kind of trying to figure out where to go, so I asked Emily, so it's like, what place should we talk about? And so she threw me a list of spots. And so I discovered Elfrida, Arizona. And so it's a little tiny town we're talking about 450 plus people, not much more than that. As you can see, it's kind of in that southern eastern part of the state, not far from the border at all. Now there's what it looks like. It's also home to lots of dude ranches or lodges. So there are a handful of places where you can go and stay, ride a horse, go on a hike. They even have they were also very famous for, they're right in the middle of so much agriculture. So there is like a lot of you pick it. You can go pick peaches, apples. In fact, actually right in the heart of Elfrida is an egg farm that is all organic, open ranch. So you can go explore and eat really well. Because I love that slice of pie I found. I was like, oh my gosh. From the Country Cafe, I'm like, I would love that in my kitchen right now. And sadly, it's not there. Now they also do have another ranch that's out there that is kind of for teens that have lost their way. So it's a little bit they've been around for 30 plus years, and just kind of a way to help get kids back on track. And so they're also supposed to be a haunted ranch out there where Vision Quest is. It said there's a figure in white that they've seen wandering around. Now, if you go out and wander around a little bit further, you will find the Lerner Mammoth Kill Site, which is a location not far from Elfrida. And it is in the 50s. There was and now we know it's a Columbian mammoth. And so a Columbian mammoth, there were remains as well as tools left by the Paleo Indians that were there. And not far away. And so that was designated in the late 60s as a historic spot. And so you can go there and walk around. But then there's also the Murray Springs Clovis site. Now it's named for The nearest natural feature, which is Murray Springs, which are about a mile away from it, as well as for the Clovis people. And this site is really named Clovis because of, in the 30s, there was some materials found in New Mexico, and they were given the Clovis name. And because of the similarity to those tools that were found in this area, they continued that name. And so they were known for being nomadic hunters that stayed in the area, and they pursued large game such as mammoths, horses, and bison. Now, the Murray Springs site is one of the most important and well-documented human sites in North America. So well worth a visit. And who knew? I mean, it's right in the middle. It's not far from Bisbee, Tombstone. So you can get so many different layers of Arizona history in one fell swoop by just staying in one of these small towns and driving around a little bit. So, and remember, if you have any questions, suggestions, maybe you've got an idea for a town or a story, be sure and let me know. And you can do that via Facebook, Marshall Shore Hip Historian, or also you can email me at hello@hiphistorian.com. And next week, same bat time, same bat channel, right here, whether you're watching us on Facebook, Twitch, or YouTube. And so we have Dan, who is with SRP, going to be talking about canals, and he's going to be putting together a trivia quiz that's already a lot of fun, and I think will even help people spot things around in their own area. Oh, and Gavin says that Elfrida can lay claim to the original seed stock for the Hatch chilies. You know, there was lots of things growing there. I did find chilies. I didn't find mention of exactly that, but it was, I mean, really in the 50s, it was a booming area. There were lots of lodges going on and lots of You Pick It, where you can go pick a variety of things. It seems like a lot of that is kind of calmed down, but you know, they're not far from Wilcox, which is kind of one of the epicenters of our wine industry. And so I know coming up, we do have Callahan Wineries coming on. We'll be talking about Arizona wine history as well. So I'm excited to say we're actually right now programming. I've already got stuff through September and now booking into October. So we've got some really cool stuff coming up. And someone asked if you can find these on YouTube. And yes, you can. They are archived on YouTube. And at this moment, if you go on to YouTube and search Hip Historian, they will come up. And so I'm actually looking to, I need to get better at how do people find those? So putting better metadata in so that they're easier to find. So working on that. That's all the fun of doing this, is getting to learn all new skills. Things I should have been doing, but I just didn't do. And indeed, and Lisa says, you know, and then there's always the Gaston Hotel in Douglas. Indeed, I love that hotel. And all that stained glass. So again, thank you all so much for joining us here as we get a chance to kind of jaunt through some Arizona history. Now, every week, it's always a different topic. A lot of it changes. And so thank you all so much for the support that you have provided. It keeps it going, as well as support of AARP of Arizona. And so they say the coronavirus continues to affect us all. We may be apart, but we're not alone. AARP is here in Arizona providing information that can help you and your family. So if you would like more information about programs, services that they offer, you can check out their website, and that is aarp.org/AZ. And so you can track them down that way. So again, don't forget, if you have questions or suggestions, you know, we also coming up, oh my gosh, we have some tiki history coming up. So there's a lot of cool stuff coming up. Now, I would like to say special thanks to Intro music and video. So music was done by Cole Travis. Video was by Chris Allen. And I'm happy to say this was our first instance of our cocktail advisor, PJ Vader Barron. So thank you so much for your input. I'm already looking forward to next week's cocktail and how we can squeeze in just a little bit more of Arizona history into that and make it fun. As well as in our outro music is by Mr. Ho, who currently is out on the East Coast with his own Orchestratica group, but he is from right here in Arizona. So thank you all so much and have a great rest of your evening.